And that's where you can get confused, and that's where you can get scared, and that's where you can get lost. That beautiful glass cockpit in your helicopter, whether you're flying a Cabri, a Robinson, a Bell, an MD, that glass cockpit can either be your worst enemy or your best friend. Today I'm going to explain some mistakes people make, some fears people have, and how to avoid them so that you can use that system and not be so scared.
That's like autopilot, dude.
How do you fly a helicopter? Well, I'm going to show you.
Welcome back, or if this is your first time joining the channel, my name is Devin. I'm a helicopter air ambulance pilot. I have gone through multiple iterations of helicopter cockpits, from steam gauges, just an altimeter, airspeed, VSI, all the way up to what I fly now, which is a full glass cockpit. We don't have anything steam, everything is electronic. So I've run the full gamut of different things you can fly. And in this video, I just want to give you some context about glass cockpits and glass screens. For anyone that doesn't know, we call a glass cockpit any cockpit that basically has a screen, some sort of display. You can have a glass cockpit that is a full display, or you could have like a combination where there is an element of glass, there is a screen, but you could also have steam gauges, like real physical instruments, like a pitot-static system. You could have any type of setup and it still be a glass cockpit. It doesn't have to just be fully glass screens. The biggest point I want you to walk away from this video is don't let the screen scare you. When I went to flight school, I was 18 years old. I was very good with technology. I was good with iPads, computers, anything, my phone, very skilled at understanding all the menus, but there was still certain parts about helicopter screens and airplane screens and just a glass cockpit that terrified me, because there's so many menus and there's so many things to see. I was actually pretty scared of this. It's easy for me to tell you now because I've been doing this for years and I've been through all of the different types of helicopters with multiple different types of screens and systems. But here is a rule I want you to know. 90-10. In helicopter flying, even at the professional level, you don't use 90% of the functionality of the GPS or the screen that you're looking at. You will really use about 10% of it. They pack so much functionality into these displays and there's tons of capabilities, and sometimes you do need to use a certain aspect of the system, but in the vast majority of the flying we do as helicopter pilots, it is mostly VFR. If you're doing IFR, okay, maybe you're using more of the system, but if you're doing VFR, the screens really, there's only a couple things that you need to look at. You need all of your pitot-static system indications. You need your airspeed, your altimeter, your VSI, and then it's nice to have an attitude indicator, but you don't really need that during VFR flying. It does make it safer. But the main two things that you can really benefit from your GPS is ADS-B, which is different traffic. You can see other aircraft around you, and mostly just the GPS. When you're flying a helicopter, you're basically going from somewhere to somewhere. So you just throw in the airport identifier you want and press direct to, and it's going to show a line and which way to go. That is like 90% of what I use my screens for. Once you figure out how to load the airport you want, the 4-letter identifier or 3-letter identifier, and press direct to, once you understand what the screen is showing you, the path that you need to fly, the heading that you need to fly, it is really easy, and that's all you need to focus on at the start. Now, as you fly more, you're going to understand more functionality, understand more things on the screen, but that's about it. If you have a fully glass cockpit, there's a couple other things you might have to know how to work, like the radio system, how to change frequencies, but you can do that pretty easily. There are so many sub-menus that you don't need. And that is point 2 that I want to talk about, is menu diving. You can really get lost in some sub-menus. Now, there are systems that are better. I would say the best avionics package and system and company out there is Garmin. Their products are extremely intuitive. It is like the iPhone of avionics. It is so easy to follow, big clean pictures, easy words. It's hard to get into sub-menus. But when you get into different systems, I won't name any, but there's tons of different avionics packages out there. Some of them are not as intuitive. They're all pretty good, but some of them are not as intuitive, and you can really get lost in the menus. Hey, quick note, I've put together my complete helicopter pilot career blueprint. This is the exact roadmap I wish I had when I was starting out. Click that link below and let's get you in the cockpit faster. And yes, it's actually free. All right, back to the video. And that's where you can get confused, and that's where you can get scared, and that's where you can get lost. And honestly, you don't need the vast majority of these for daytime or nighttime VFR helicopter flying. When you're learning these systems, these products are everywhere. So there are YouTube videos about it. There are Reddit pages, information online, PDFs, documents that you can read online about how to work these systems, and they go really in depth. What I'd recommend to you is just focusing on the critical functions that you need. How to change radio functionality if that's part of your display system, how to set direct to, how to set waypoints, how to find the nearest airport. That is another huge feature, just like nearest airport, nearest VOR, nearest ILS. Those functionalities will get you 90% of what you need. So focus on the critical things we need as pilots, and then you can really, as you become more experienced, you can dive deeper into the menus and understand the systems better. Understand the critical functionality and don't get too deep into the menus. Now, the biggest point that we have to talk about, and these systems make aviation safer objectively. They just make aviation safer. However, they can cause accidents and they can become very detrimental. There are 2 points here that I want to talk about. The first one is over-reliance, and the second one is fixation. As you learn your glass cockpit or your GPS system and you really start to understand it, you can start to become overly reliant on that. Now, some pilots do that with their actual technology in their aircraft, or they do that with ForeFlight. Some people learn to not be able to navigate or fly an aircraft without technology, and that is crazy. If you can't fly your helicopter with a screen in front of you or an iPad next to you, you've done something wrong. Aviation is all about stick skills and mental. We say aviate, navigate, communicate. None of that includes screens or iPads. If you fly inadvertent IMC, maybe some technology really will save your life, but just in general flying, you should not overly rely on your systems. They are assets, they are tools, they can help with productivity and functionality, but you do not need those, and you need to be able to be good at stick flying skills and just aviating and being a pilot. The other point of this is fixation. Now, this is a problem that all of us have. When they throw in this beautiful glass cockpit with so much information, and a lot of it is extremely good information, and the helicopter I fly, there is tons of information. I look at these screens a lot, which is great. However, this part sucks about it. They draw you in, there's beautiful colors, they're laid out really well, and if you fixate on your screens, you're not looking at what's going around the helicopter, what's going out that way, up, down, below, how close we're getting to the ground, where are other aircraft. Now, these screens can show a lot of that. It's kind of a catch-22, because if on your screen you've got terrain awareness, you can see how your altitude, you can see where the terrain is. If it has ADS-B, you can also see other aircraft, but that's not guaranteed. The only thing that's really guaranteed is looking outside. So you can get fixated on this, and this is something I have to remind myself not to do, is don't get fixated like we got to do our scan outside, outside, inside, gauges, what's our screen doing, how's our helicopter performing, outside, outside, looking for traffic, all of this stuff. It's a constant scan. You can really get fixated on these big, beautiful displays, and that's a problem that I have to help myself from, and that I'd recommend you try to avoid as well. To quickly recap, the points that I just want to emphasize is don't get overwhelmed. There is about 90% of stuff in these systems that you don't really need on a day-to-day basis. There's about 10% that you do. Go learn that 10% and get really good at it and really comfortable with it, and learn how to use these tools to your benefit, not overly relying, not getting fixated, and not being scared. Learn how to use the critical functionality and just use that as an asset and not as your primary means of navigation or operating your aircraft. I was kind of scared of the screens and the displays. I didn't really understand it, but now at this point I can clearly tell you that it is very simple. It is not that hard. But here are 9 things that I wish I knew before I was a helicopter pilot. Go check that video out. Let me know what concerns you have, what questions you have about avionics, what do you want to use the avionics for? Let me know down in the comments below. Subscribe for all kinds of helicopter content, and I will see you on the next one. Take care.